this year's fourth episode of Monthly Ethics Seminar Series, or I love that. That's almost 100% of you guys answered. That's wonderful. MESS is a public service information drive and a regular mainstay activity of the UP Diliman Research Ethics Board, and it happens monthly. That's right, UPD Rebs MESS every month. Mark your calendars, do it now, I mean it, I'm watching. But the reason you should catch every episode is that MESS features lectures and discussions on the responsible conduct of research, especially research involving human participants. The topics, too, are highly relevant to the current and very diverse research and scholarly needs of UPD and other academic institutions. This is because MESS is sentient, or mindful of the need to be constantly up to date with the latest ethical approaches and standards in research. That said, MESS is designed to be informal, conversational, kapatid, usap tayo. Hence the idea of exchanging insights over lunch. It's mess as in mess hall and not mess as in me. Now you must be wondering, who is this stunningly unhinged woman speaking in front of me? And the answer would be, hi, I'm Bridget Diaz, your moderator for today's discussion, hoping to help put the LAS and CIS in class analysis. Of course, there are other words you can find within the phrase class analysis, but we will not be serving those for lunch today. Again, good morning and welcome to MESS. Here are a few reminders. Everyone is encouraged to have their lunch while listening to the guest speaker. Kain po ng mabuti baka magalit pa sa amin yung mga jowa nyo kung meron man. And for our on-site attendees, we have free-flowing water at the back. Stay hydrated. Please take note of your questions. We will have an open forum where you can participate actively in polls, Q&A, and discussions. As for polls, that's mostly for our virtual attendees. But speaking of our virtual attendees, hi there. Please make sure to keep your microphones muted when not speaking. To receive your certificates after MESS, fill out the evaluation form that will be given at the end of this seminar. Certificates of attendance are given to online participants, and certificates of participation are given to on-site participants. For our online attendees, your QR code for the evaluation form will be flashed on the screen near the end of the program and also sent through the Zoom chat box. For on-site attendees, please see your QR code for the evaluation form at the registration area near Miss Flora Tagiling. Again, that's Miss Flora Tagiling. But without further ado, Pierre Bourdieu, who is today's esteemed guest speaker. Dr. Chucky Fer Calzado is a special science teacher 5 at the Philippine Science High School main campus, and he specializes in bioethics education. He earned a master's degree in education from UP Diliman, majoring in environmental education. He also earned a master's degree in bioethics from Monash University and has a PhD in bioethics education from the University College London Institute of Education, where he focused on post-colonial theory, critical pedagogy, and bioethics education. Dr. Calzado is also a member of AGHAM Educators, a chapter of AGHAM Advocates of Science and Technology for the People. Presenting Whose Ethics, a class-based analysis of ethical transactions and valuations, let us welcome Dr. Chucky Fer Calzado.
Oh, good morning. Hindi ata na-update yung sinend kong bio note. Ako po pala yung national chairperson ng AGHAM. So, hindi hindi na po member. Yung discussion, no, medyo, class-based analysis. I'm allergic to class-based analysis, no? Especially in the Philippines, no? Maraming mga academic sa atin. Basta marinig yung class-based, ayoko yan tignan, no? Ayoko yan basahin. Pero yung question sa atin, bakit, no? Bakit tayo nagiging allergic to that at ano ba yung value ng ganitong analysis when we talk about ethics? Siguro yung caveat, I'm not a philosopher, I think. Katulad ng sinabi kanina, ang background ko is sa natural sciences, biology, and then education, and then yung master's at yung PhD, doon na ako nag-focus on bioethics. Looking at bioethics, paulit-ulit lang yung sinasabi. They're talking about maximum happiness. They're talking about duties, talking about all these ethical principles and moral philosophies. Pero ang question ay, paano ba siya talaga nagiging ethical? If we're looking at the other uh, seminars, no, ng MES, ano na siya, parang may pagtanggap na dapat ethical yung research, no? Ethical yung mga ginagawa natin. But the first question that needs to be answered first is, what is ethical? No? So yun yung point nung discussion ko, no? In through that class-based analysis, because I'm bringing ethics doon sa materiality ng analysis kay ethics. So next na lang po. So in 2009, ay dahan-dahan lang po. So in 2009, itong pong poging lalaking to, si Peter Singer, he's a very well-known utilitarianist, no? He's a philosopher. He wrote a book. Ayun. He wrote a book on the life that you can save, no? Ang pinaka-meat nitong the life that you can save is a thought experiment on the drowning child thought experiment, no? So mamaya daanan natin. So paki-next po. So itong drowning child, kinonceptualize niya yan kasi nung nandun siya sa Australia, sa Monash, kung nasa nagturo dati, meron dong pond, no? Uy, mag-isip ako, ano bang pwedeng tignan gawin dito sa pond, no? I'm a utilitarianist. So sabi niya, naglalakad ako, bago yung suot ko, maganda yung bihis ko, maganda yung sapatos ko, at may nakita akong nalulunod. Okay, na bata. Ayan, so ayun, paki-stop na po dyan. Kasi medyo mahaba yan, 3 minutes na. So ayan, pa-next na po. Yung tanong doon kasi ni Peter Singer is, are you going to save the child? So sa mga tao dito, ano pong usually yung sagot nyo? Are you going to save the child or not? Yes, no? That thought experiment asks us kung tutulong tayo. Pero meron pa siyang extension. Ina-extend niya yung moral question to, are you just going to help that child or that person near you? Or can you extend that to children in Africa? So ibig sabihin, the morally right thing to do is not only in the context of doing it to the nearest person, but doing it regardless of the distance. He talks about poverty in this book, no? Kaya siya, itong libro na to, nakapagtulak siya para yung mga tao ay magbigay sa charity. Ang implication ng book ay giving aid, no? Giving to charity. So may mga tamang charity daw na binibigyan. Pero ang problem ko, paki-next po, kay Peter Singer and his pond, no? Ay he look at poverty in the context of the abstract, as if it can be answered through an abstraction of this problem. So ngayon, kayo, as moral agents, kapag tinanong tayo, are you going to save the child or not? Akala natin na ang sagot lang ay yes or no. Or you are forced to say yes. Pero ako, ang pagtingin ko doon, the problem is not about asking if you're going to save the child or not. The problem is, in the first instance, in the first place, bakit may pond? Because the pond is the poverty. But the question, the moral question is just asking of saving or not saving, but not asking why is there poverty in the first place. Same kay Bentham, no? A utilitarianist din siya. Next po. Who developed, no? Created, constructed, or conceptualized the panopticon. No? Sino ba tong mga philosopher na to? Paano sila nagke-create? For example, parang hindi ko ma-reconcile yung isang philosopher na gumawa ng way to maximize yung pag-surveil sa mga prisoner, and then you're talking about morality. No? So, yun din yung question ko kay Peter Singer. You're talking about saving the child, talking about saving the African child, pero you cannot talk about poverty. Bakit kaya? Ano kaya meron dito sa mga philosophers na to? Next po. So, kadugtong niya mga yan, no? Those are just some of the examples na kino-question ko sa aking research. ay kasama na rin diyan yung panahon ng pandemic. Nagsakto, yung research ko panahon ng pandemic. Pagbalik ko dito nag-pandemic, uy, I I will move 'no, yung ilang context ng research ko, ipapasok ko si pandemic at sumakto naman siya. Are you natatandaan pa natin yung discussion ng vaccine mandate, 'di ba? We are being forced to vaccinate. In itself, wala namang masama sa vaccination, 'no? Sabihin natin, 'no? In itself, siguro morally may mako-question ka, et cetera, et cetera. Pero meron ka ring ma-argue na, okay, acceptable si vaccination. But the mandatory vaccination, ito yung medyo magkakaroon tayo ng problema. So paki-next po. So then therefore, na-push si CHR na magbigay ng comment kay Duterte. Lalo na we had the worst response to the pandemic. In terms of utang, in terms of militarization, in terms of control. Later on, i-discuss ko doon sa presentation. Next po. And then there are those philosophers who are arguing for the mandatory COVID-19 vaccination. Para gumulaw ang mundo, para mabuhay na ulit yung mundo, kailangan natin protektahan ng isa't isa through a vaccine mandate. Lahat dapat magbakuna. Kaso, tingin ko wala namang problema kung magkaroon ako ng vaccine hesitancy. Hala, bad person yung nagsasalita. No? Ako, ang position ko sa vaccine hesitancy, that's good. But a lot of doctors, a lot of learned individuals, sasabihin nila, no, vaccine hesitancy should not exist. No, it should for me. Why? You should be hesitant to things that will be put in you kung hindi mo alam kung ano yun. No? You should be hesitant and that's good. Ang problem is kapag hesitant ka and all education, all the proper responses ay nabigay na, hesitant ka pa rin. Doon tayo magkakaproblema. Kung ginawa na ng Estado yung dapat nilang gawin, ginawa na ng mga educators nilang dapat gawin, na-address na ng mga scientists yung negative implication ng isang technology, etc., hesitant ka pa rin. No? Pero dapat, tingnan kasi natin yung vaccine hesitancy as a response ng individual, hindi dapat to weaponized by the state. Magkaiba kasi yun. When the state weaponizes these kinds of moral transaction, evaluation, doon tayo nagkakaproblema. Kasi fino-force tong isang ethical dilemma sa atin. When in fact, okay lang naman, dapat ako maging hesitant. Okay? Pero again, yung caveat nun, dapat na-address. At kapag na-address na yung hesitancy mo, sana okay na siya. Pero syempre, pwede pa rin magkaroon ng hesitancy. Next po. And then you have these well-known, no? Kung hindi tayo familiar with Sabulescu, is a well-known philosopher from Oxford, no? So, he talk about the vaccine mandate through a concept of payment risk-reward ratio. Kaso, ang problema ko dito sa isang philosopher, sa isang bioethicist na nagsasalita about ethical transactions and evaluation coming from a position of power, coming from a position of control of capital, ay hindi niya na-experience yung experience ng working class. For example, next po, the workers who face the greatest risk of coronavirus, yung mga manggagawa. So ngayon, totoo bang lahat ay mandatorily given the vaccine? No. Yung mga manggagawa ang i-force nating i-vaccinate kasi sila yung magbubuhat ng ekonomiya natin. Sila yung magtutuloy ng buhay natin together with the frontliners, nurses, doctors, kasama na dyan yung mga nasa gig economy. Natatandaan ba natin yung mga deliveries natin during the pandemic? 'Di ba? So ang dami nating deliveries. Sila yung binigyan ng bakuna, sila yung nabigyan ng passes. Pero at the end of the day, when you say that there is it's ethically acceptable to have vaccine mandate, ang question is sino yung fino-force nating magbakuna? Sino yung fino-force natin to accept this as ethically sound? To accept this as ethically right, no? So yung next po, so diyan papasok yung question ni Bakuni 2022. She said, I don't know kung they said, no, it's a wealthy ethics. No? It's the ethics of the rich. Kung titingnan natin, babalikan natin si Peter Singer, he's not a poor man. No? Wag pa natin tignan yung identity mo, wag na natin muna tignan yung identity. Tignan natin yung uri niya. Ano siya, nakapag-aral, nasa position of power, sabihin natin hindi siya mayaman, pero meron siyang capital. Ang capital niya ay knowledge. No? At yung knowledge na nito ay may ethics siya. Ipe-perpetuate niya. Same with Bentham. Si Bentham ay a person of power. No? Isama na natin sila sa Bulesco at iba pa. So, ngayon, yung tanong sa ating kanina, bakit ethical? Paano naging ethical? So we will conduct human research, etc., ethics on historical research, etc. Bakit ethical? No? Bakit naging ethical yung mga protocols natin? Okay? So next po. For me, those ethical principles such as autonomy, paternalism, beneficence, non-maleficence, you also have your justice, informed consent, these lies in the abstract or they exist in the abstract. Siguro in this room or especially kahit yung mga nasa Zoom online, no? Can you actually explain what justice is? Is there meron bang isang definition ng justice? Do we have one definition of informed consent? What's the definition of consent? What is the definition of informed? No? So, all of those things. No? Informed consent process, meron pa. Kami may dinudugtong pa. Genuine informed consent process. Ano yung definition natin nun? No? Together with utilitarianism, together with the ontology, divine law, virtue ethics, anong ibig sabihin nun? Sinong gumagamit nun? Who are defining those moral principles? So for me, as they exist, they are then used as a in a context ng commodification of difference. I'm a utilitarianist, then therefore my philosophy is this and this. I'm a deontologist, then therefore my philosophy is this and this. No, I follow this. So ngayon, ano yung ethics for everyone? For me, ang argument ko, currently wala. There's no universal absolute ethics. No? Next po. Their ethics, yung mga nabanggit ko kanina, the ethics of these philosophers are from a position of power and from an abstract conception of the lives of ethical agents. Such as in the drowning child thought experiment. Iisipin mo, ipo-force kang mag-isip na tumulong ka sa mahirap without them really understanding ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng pagiging mahirap. No? Ano ba ibig sabihin ng charity? How does charity actually, in my dissertation, tinanong ko siya sa mga estudyante na middle class, tinanong ko rin siya sa mga lumad student. Iba yung understanding nila ng charity. Iba yung understanding nila ng pagtulong. Pero ito, kinakahon, for example, in the Drowning Child Thought Experiment, sa isang pamamaraan, sa pagbibigay ng pera, sa pagbibigay ng tulong. Pero who can actually give? Then therefore, the ethical agent are those people who can give. Kaya nga, di ba? Kaya nga mayroong mga Forbes 100 richest men. Walang Forbes 100 poorest people. Kasi ang inaangat natin, yung may pera. Kasi yung may pera, yung may capital, are the ones, I argue, are the ones who can be ethical agents, moral agents. Next po. So with that, ayun, magsisimula pa lang tayo. Daming sinabi, no? Pero magsisimula pa lang. The question of whose ethics, a class-based analysis of ethical valuation and transactions. Most likely, no, maraming allergic dito. Hala, class-based analysis. Hala, laos na yan. Hala, laos na ba talaga? Laos na bang maging mahirap? No? Totoo bang hindi na ako mahirap? No? Once I remove the class-based analysis in my classroom, nawala na ba ng mahirap? Or we just change the language? When we change the language, commodification of difference yun. No? Bakit ayaw nating gamitin yung language na yun? Natatakot tayo, may implication, X, Y, Z. Next po. So in particular, I argue what we deem as the absolute universal ethics that define what is morally right or wrong is currently dominated by the ethics of the ruling class. Okay? So yung iniisip natin na right and wrong, may nagtutulak sa atin na yan ang tama. No? Pero yung tingin natin, mali yung ginagawa ng mayaman na binulldoze yung farmland namin kasi you have your own ethics as the ethics of the exploited. But for them, hindi mali yung ginawa nila. Why? Because their ethics is an ethics that will support their morality. No? So, ayun yung pagtingin ko. So, kung hindi ganun yung pagtingin ng iba, ganun talaga ang buhay. No? Pero yun yung ina-argue ko. Next po. So, bakit gano'n? Makikita naman natin sa datos, eh, kahit 'tong lumang libro na ni, David Harvey on A Brief History of Neoliberalism, maganda yung pinakita niya, yung next, 'tong mga tatlong graphs balik po. Kasi sasabihin ko yung the next graphs. So, itong tatlong graph na 'to 'no, may mas bagong datos pa 'no. Luma na nga 'tong ginamit niya, eh, pero makikita mo as you move from the 1920s 'no, bumaba yung ano, after the war 'no, 1945, tumaas muna siya and then bumaba. Bakit? Ano nangyari dito? Lumakas yung yung mga working class 'no, in these countries. But, hindi natin sinasabing na nakukuha na ng working class. It's just that unti-unti nang pumapaling yung capital, unti-unti nang pumapaling yung power doon sa mga working class group. At nung nakikita na nila, okay, we have to wrest it back from them, 'no? Atin yun dati, eh. From the time of the kings, from the time of the queens, no? Et cetera, et cetera. Nasa atin yung capital, nasa atin yung power. Unti-unti nilang kinuha sa atin, unti-unti na naglalaho, kunin natin ulit. In-apply yung Neolib. No? Neolib to 1975. Unti-unti nang umangat. No? Next po. Lalo na to, magandang makikita how it was different, how we can differentiate the US. US, umangat talaga. Umiwalay siya sa Britain at sa France. Because nasama dito, maganda rin yung graph sa ibon, yung Tamtax. No, hindi na tayo pyramid, eh. Karamihan ng resources ay nasa napakakonting pamilya, nasa napakaliit na number ng population natin, halos nasa kanila, no? At yung napakaliit na resources na natitira, naghahati ang napakaraming Pilipino. So yun, those are data, no, na meron tayo. Makikita talaga yung kapitalismo gamit ang neoliberalismo as a tool na nakuha nila yung capital at power. Hala, capital at power, anong kinalaman nito sa ethics? No, in a 3 slides from here, makikita natin. So capital and power, pabalik lang po, were forcefully transferred from the working class back to the ruling class through neoliberalism as one of, no? Siyempre marami pa. Okay? So next po, ano ba yung neolib? The state has to guarantee, for example, the quality and integrity of money. Pera ang ano, no, mahalaga. It must also set up those military, defense, police, and legal structures and functions required to secure private property rights and to guarantee by force if need be. Furthermore, if markets do not exist, such as in land, water, education, naalala na nakabalitaan niyo si Prime Water? Prime Water, mahal na tubig, no? Pero para nag-release ata ng, di ko alam kung si Supreme Court yon or an RTC, nag-ano sila, no? Ano ata, a water cooperative ata in Bulacan, no? Na ipi-pre-terminate nila yung contract with Prime Water. I read a news last night ata, the other day. Education, naalala yung ano, yung talk ni Kimbo sa Congress? Naalala ko yung sinabi niya, eh, yung magagaling nating edukador ay pumupunta abroad. Then therefore, yung magandang edukasyon ay nasa abroad. Tapos ano yung argument niya? Then therefore, dalhin natin yung edukasyon na nasa abroad dito sa Pilipinas para gumaling tayo. Free market. Makakalaban ba yung kunyari na lang UP, no? Or kung let's say mag-offer na scholarship yung let's say Harvard, mag-open si Harvard sa ano, no? Harvard Manila. Di ba? Mag-open siya ng scholarship, edi makukuha niya yung pinakamagagaling natin. 'Di ba? So, dun, ang tanong sa atin, kung ano yung tinuro ng Harvard, kaninong ethics, kaninong perspective, kaninong worldview ang ibibigay nila kasama nung tinuturo nila. then they must be created by state action if necessary. Ipupush yun. No? Kung hindi ma-liberalize to, ili-liberalize natin with force. Next po. Sabi ni Stanchik, maganda to sinabi eh. Bakit ba tayo a little bit allergic to class-based analysis? Social classes and class struggle have not disappeared, but they have been covered with the ideology of economic growth, free trade, and the identification of the common good with the good of capital holders. Such a situation has provoked growing tensions that are this time covered with the ideology of nationalism, chauvinism, and trade wars. But in the end, the common good is again identified with the good of capital. Capital, money is good. Okay? Who controls money, who controls capital, sila yung magdadala of what is good. At yung dinagdag pa dyan ni Stanchik sa paper niyan, that paper is the critical critique on critical pedagogy, is that in the time of Neolib, natanggal talaga yung discussion ng class analysis. Natanggal talaga yung class struggle. What are we using? We use the term oppression, we use the term marginalization, we use terms that will hide, no? That analysis. Ayaw nating i-touch 'yun, no? At may implication sa atin 'yun. Okay? So next po. Thus, we are forced to use an incomplete ethical language, an ethical language that resides in the abstract, such as the virtues, the divine rule, maximum happiness, of duties, etc. Ano ba ibig sabihin sa atin ng divine law? Diba? Ano ang sixth commandment? Diba? O dapat pa ba fina-follow yung Ten Commandments? Sabi nga nung pinanganak si Jesus Christ, di ba? Kaya nga meron ka na New Testament. From the Old Testament yung Ten Commandments. So ano ba talaga yung sinusunod natin, no? Lalo na ngayon mas maraming mga tao ang magbabasa about Catholic faith. For example, kakamatay lang ni Pope, for example. So how are you going to understand the divine law? O snippets of the divine law lang ba yung tinuturo sa atin? Of virtues. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng pagiging courageous? Pagiging honest? Maybe honesty is a function of how rich you are, how poor you are. Such as, next slide po. Nawala ata yung ano. O sige, o baka na-move ko. Sige, so in-argue ko dito in relation to neolib. No? Karugtong nung sinabi ko a while ago. The dominant language and capital, no, related sila. Where M here is money, C is commodity, M prime is a change in money. Ano yung importante do sa taas? It's the letter E. In this case, it's English. This is written by John O'Regan in his book Global Economy and Capital. Nakalimutan ko yung full title of the book, pero ayun yung book, no? So sinasabi na dito na those who control the economy, yung language nila ang gagamitin. It will dominate the language. Ang example niya is when the UK controlled Hong Kong. So ano yung naging salita ng Hong Kong? So gumamit sila ng English language. Yung pangalan ng mga taga Hong Kong naging American Chinese, 'di ba? Or Hong Kong, no? Taga Hong Kong. Ang batas sa English nakasulat. Okay? So itong argument ni John O'Regan na to, ginamit ko siya sa ethics. Because it says that maganda yung argument eh. O nga no? Kung sino nagko-control ng capital, kung sino nagko-control ng power, most likely it's their language that will be used. Kaya nga yung ano natin, no? Mas magaling yung mga nag-i-English. 'Di ba? Kapag Tagalog ang ginagamit mo, hindi ka magaling. Ay katulad ko, nagtatagalog ako, no? So hindi ako magaling. No, pero in that case, 'di ba? Totoo ba? I think there's an argument that can be made on this, no? Lalo na tignan natin, sino ang masama sa mga batas na ginagawa? Bakit yung mga batas, for example, anti-dynasty law, hindi pa rin nasusulat? Babalikan natin, sino may control sa power? Sino may control sa capital? No? Hindi pa siya usapin ng ethics, no? Usapin pa lang siya na materialization of the language in our laws. Laws are the materialization of language of the dominant group in your society. Next, balik lang pala. This is in the context of neolib. No? Yung in-explain ko kanina sa neolib, merong push doon sa control sa capital. At nung na-control na nga nila yung capital, ito na yung relasyon ng capital sa language. Next po. For example, in the case of virtue, ito, nagkamali pala yung slide ko kanina. For example, in the case of virtues or other ethical philosophies, principles, it is like the marshmallow test. Alam natin yung marshmallow test? Yung bibigyan ka ng marshmallow, sasabihin sa'yo, aalis lang ako bantayan mo yung marshmallow, wag mong kakainin. No? So yung next slide po. But the marshmallow test is not actually a test on control. New studies show that ito ang problema. Usapin siya ng socio-economic status. No? Mag-delayed gratification ka pa ba kung mamamatay ka bukas kung wala kang kinain ngayon? Di ba? It's the same context with ethics. Can you do good? For example, if the minimum requirement is to give 10 pesos to that person helping you move your car, to exit your car sa parking lot. But if you cannot give 10 pesos, you are not an ethical agent. 'Di ba? Pero ika-counter to ng teachings ng church natin. Ano sabi ng church? Sabi dun sa isang dun sa isang passage, no? Sino ang mas nagbigay? Yung mahirap daw who gave the last coin kasi yun lang ang meron siya, no? So ngayon, ano ka, no? Hala, ano ba to? Wala akong pero I am being forced to give because the heaven is already promised to me. So I should be poor, but I'm still forced to help. Diba? Pero it's really hard to help if you're poor. So you are being forced to be ethical. But it's really hard to be ethical if you don't have the money, if you don't have the capital to be ethical. That's my argument. No? Being good is also influenced, determined by social classes. Okay? Babalikan natin. Bakit nga may Forbes 100 richest people? Kasi tinutulak tayo na yun yung dapat na gawin. Dapat maging mayaman. No? Maling maging mahirap. Pero ang tanong, bakit may naghihirap? Bakit may pinapahirapan in our society? Next po. So in that logic, no? I argue, ang galing nung small e pala to, hindi ko na change, no? Ang galing ng thesis ko, no? Pinalitan ko lang yung capital E sa small e. So, because if language free rides on capital, if dominant language free rides on capital or is dialectical to capital, then ethics is also dialectical to capital. Okay? Kung sino ang nagko-control ng capital sa lipunan, sila ang makakapagtulak kung anong ethics ang gusto nila. Okay? But we know that what they're doing is not ethical. Why? Because they're dominating our ethics. My argument is that walang absolute universal ethics right now. What we have, because we are in a class society, they have their ethics. Katulad ng sinabi ni Bakuni kanina, wealthy ethics, but I will argue on a different line later on. And we have our own ethics, the ethics of the exploited, the ethics of the poor. Okay? Next po. Ito yung implication nun. It's not just about the wealthy ethics and the poor ethics. It's the violent ethics of the ruling class. It's the ethics of resistance of the exploited class. We resist that violent ethics. Kung ethics yun, hindi ba dapat hindi yun violent? Try thinking that you are one of the richest person in the world. You will justify your action. No? And that justification is your own ethics. It's the ethics of your social class. Kaya mo ma-justify na hindi ka magre-regularize ng isang Jollibee worker kasi i-justify mo yung profit margin mo in an XYZ ethical reason. Pero sa pagtingin ng Jollibee worker, it's not ethical for me to get this very low salary, this very low wage, no? Kasi ito ay exploitasyon sa akin. What is exploitation to you is a benefit to the other group. No? And they justify that as ethical. Okay? Next po. So ano ngayon, kung ito yung argument natin philosophically? I applied this to my thesis during the COVID-19 pandemic. I analyzed around 67 speeches of Duterte. Nakakabaliw. Paulit-ulit lang siya, wala siyang sinasabi. May tatlong lumabas na sinasabi ni ano 'no, ni Duterte during the pandemic 'no. Every week 'yun 'no, from March 2020 to April 2021 ba, 2022, I read those papers, those, speeches. Next po. Ano yung lumabas dun sa mga speeches ni Duterte during the pandemic? One is there's this common theme of failure of communication or consciously making ano no, consciously minamali nila yung communication with the people. Where the language of addressing the pandemic does not form a coherent and united tone and function for the benefit of the majority of the Filipino people. Saan nyo makikita? From the IATF orders, memorandum, merong minsan allowed, hindi allowed. Natatandaan natin yung mga quarantine definition natin. Yung mga iba't iba natin, MECQ, ECQ, ganyan-ganyan, no? Ang daming derivatives. Pero yung tao, ano ba tayo ngayon? MECQ ba tayo? ECQ ba tayo? Kapag ECQ, ano bang ibig sabihin yan? Failure of communication. Yung isa pang nakita ko doon, sabi ni Duterte kay Lenny, Lenny, kung gusto mo, pumunta ka doon. Tapos, bubuhusan ko yung virus, ihulog yung virus sa bulkan. Meron siyang something like that. Buhusan na mainit na mantika yung virus na yan. Ha? You are the head nung bansa. Pero ganun mo ina-address yung pandemic. Okay? Failure of communication. Next po. Through the lockdown measures that represent the peace and order response to the pandemic and ultimately the vaccine as the sole solution to the pandemic and how it is related to the foreign policy of the government, as example. Tatandaan natin yung militarization. Sa Pilipinas lang, no, hindi ko lang alam, baka I'm not completely correct, pero for the past years, sa Pilipinas lang ako nakakita na yung mga police at military natin ay nakacamouflage sa urban setting. Nakakamo na forest camo. Anong mali doon? Yung camouflage, you should not be seen. But wearing that camouflage in the city, you want to be seen. You are, pinapakita mo yung force mo. Pinapakita mo yung authority mo against the people. At gusto mo silang sumunod. At paano mo sila pinasunod? Naalala niyo first day ng lockdown? Imbis na paglayo-layuin yung, magkarugtong yung language na to eh. Imbis na paglayo-layuin yung mga tao, anong ginawa nila sa first day? Diba, nag-lockdown na. Andun, ang daming taong naipon sa isang lugar kasi hindi na sila makapagbiyahe. Akala ko ba ang goal natin ay paghiwa-hiwalay ng mga tao? Pero dahil militarize yung action mo, ginamit mo lang yung military para i-control sila. Ano nangyari? Lalo ka nagkaroon ng sakit. You have cases na pinag-exercise. Pinag-exercise, namatay, nag-cardiac arrest. No? May mga ganon. Ba't di mo na lang pauwiin? Merong case na hinabol, nadulas, nabagok yung ulo, namatay. May mga cases na kinulong sa kulungan ng aso. Diba? Ang pinoproblema mo ay virus, pero mas pinoproblema mo pa the militarization of the pandemic funds. So, ayun ang natin, no? That's the ethics, that's the violent ethics of the ruling class as represented by Duterte during that time. And the last theme, the issue of governance as a tool of misdirection related to political enemies and related issues of corruption. Government critics like Senator De Lima, Vice President Robredo, and the left progressive groups the President tagged with the communists and corruption. Kapag hindi sumunod, kasi yan, mga aktivista yan. So, kapag XYZ, kasi aktivista yan. Meron pa doon, pinagalitan niya si Chel Jokno. Ang sabi kay Chel ay parang hindi kaaya-aya yung itsura ni Chel Jokno. Ano kinalaman nun do sa pandemic response? Your IATF is responding to the pandemic. Bakit gano'n yung pinag-uusapan? Meron pa doon from October to December. Duterte was just reading uh, quote unquote corrupt officials. But the talk is about the COVID-19 response. Why are you reading out loud uh, uh, government officials who have corruption issues at hindi pa sila napapatunayan may corruption issues. So ayun, for me, that's another way to move the discussion away from the pandemic. No? That has bioethical and ethical valuation and transaction na kailangang i-address. Next po. For example, in this case, ito magandang example nung the difference between the ethics of the ruling elite and the ethics of the exploited, no? Of the marginalized. Pag hinahanap mo yung word na mass doon sa 67 speeches na yon, 4 na beses lang siya lalabas. But people have been asking the government during that time na mag-mass testing para makita, no? Para makita natin kung ang tawag dito, kung nasan ba yung mga areas na may sakit. Pero they really opted not to talk about it. Meron dalawa akong nakita, sabi ni Bongo and then another official, they talk about mass testing. Pero hanggang doon lang siya. Wala nang, ang sinasabi lang ay kailangan mag-mass testing, but not in the context of that as a requirement para mahanap natin yung sakit, but just to say the word mass testing. At kung titingnan natin yung mga news, if you can still remember Dizon, na DOTR na ngayon, ano siya nun, di ba? Ang daming czars nun eh. Czar. Di ko alam kung anong czar siya nun. Si Vince, no? Pero siya talaga yung nag-argue against mass testing during that time. So doon mo makikita. That's ethics. No? That's the right thing to do. And the right thing to do for those in power is not to do mass testing. But the right thing to do for those who are exploited is to push for the mass testing so that we know nasaan ba ang sakit. Gaano ba kalala ang sakit. Ha? Next slide po. Ito, sobrang wisit talaga ako dito sa picture na to eh. Kasi it's really unfair tag dito, graphic, no? Na coming from DOH. Anong nakalagay nila? Pagkaliwa, hindi sadya. If you're going to do analysis of how you write things, where you place information, kaya mo ma-assess, no? Kapag kaliwa, sino ba yung kaliwa? 'Di ba? Sino ba yung progressive? Katulad nung number 3 kanina, ilalamp natin doon sa theme na yon. Activists minimize impact. Minimize daw ng mga activists yung impact ng vaccine. While those who are in the right are advocating support, advocacy, etc. Sobrang, for me, this is very offensive. Why? Next slide po. Bago pa nag-bid up sa bakuna si DOH during that time, our organization was already able to send out open, free IEC material, information educational material for COVID, a COVID explainer na umabot ng around 20 plus language from Luzon to Mindanao. So if you're going to go back to that slide, yung mga nasa left ba talaga? Yung mga aktivista ba talaga ang masama? Or they are being pinupush yung narrative na masama sila? Kaya babalik ako yung sinabi ko kanina eh. For example, vaccine hesitancy. Vaccine hesitancy is not bad. No? Philosophically, it's not bad. Even not philosophically, biologically, in terms of education, etc., it's not bad. It is bad when the government failed to do its and all the institutions failed to address vaccine hesitancy. No? Ang nagiging dapat ako maging hesitant Pero sino yung nag-o-open sa akin ng mind ko? Sino yung nag-e-educate sa akin? Sino yung nag-e-equip sa akin para hindi ako maging hesitant? 'Di ba? Para matanggap ko, oo nga, tama nga, hindi nga maling magpabakuna, XYZ, no? Isa. Next po. And then, malapit nang matapos, no? Bigla na lang, no? Ito pa isa kong nakita eh. Sabi ni Duterte, "Bobombahin ko 'yan. I will bomb them. Barilin sila sa kanilang puke." 'No? Gano'n talaga yung language niya, eh. "Shoot them in their vagina. My orders are to the police together with the military at the barangay that if there is trouble and if there is an occasion that they resist and your lives are put at stake, shoot them dead." Hindi lang 'to sa panahon ng EJK, sa panahon din 'to nung pandemic. Imagine mo, ang kinakatakutan mo ay virus. Pero babariling ka. Paano kung gusto mong bumili ng ulam kasi magugutom na kayo, you're resisting, ba't hindi ka na lang samahan na bilhin yung ulam na yon? I remember there was a man who was, binaril siya, malapit siya dun sa ini-stayan namin during that time. Bakit? May PTSD siya, eh. Tas yung hawak niya ay bote ng mineral, pero binaril siya. Resisting? I don't think so, no? Pero, very easy to to push that trigger. Bakit? Ethics of the ruling elite. That is the right thing to do para pasunurin sila. Pero, pero, meron ding ethics of resistance. Kasama yung mga lumad student dun sa dun sa thesis ko. And maganda yung statement nila. For example, in this case, bakit hindi ka lalaban? Kumakatok na daw sa sikmura mo, no? Sa tagiliran mo, yung inhustisya. Bakit hindi ka palalaban? Kasi ganoon yung ethics of the exploited. Okay? Ganoon yung ethics natin. Anong implication nun sa human research ethics? Next po. How are we now defining autonomy if it's written in the National Ethical Guidelines? How are we defining beneficence? How are we actually understanding yung relationship ng NCIP sa Indigenous Peoples Group? Paano natin naiintindihan yung informed consent? Paano natin naiintindihan what is a community? Kasi kung ganun, kapag inassess natin yung fundamental definition of ethics, in this context, mag-iiba yung pagtingin natin doon sa definition ng mga to. Okay? Hindi na natin basta-basta tatanggapin na tama yung beneficence, tama yung non-maleficence. Kasi yung question, or in the context of beneficence, sino ang nagbe-benefit? Kanino ka nagdo-do good in terms of beneficence? If you're not doing any harm, kanino ka nagdo-do ng non-harm? No? So, yun. Justice. What do we mean by justice? Ano ibig sabihin ng hustisya? Hustisya ba yan na dinefine ni Foucault, for example, o dinefine ni Fanon, o dinefine ni Rawls, o mas gusto natin yung definition ni Dworkin, for example. At tignan natin, saang position ba sila nagsulat? Anong lente nila to sinulat? No? Next po. Or in the case of GMOs, yung GMOs, nagiging usapin na lang siya ng ethicality of the GMO eh. But not a discussion on the ethicality on the power of one imperialist country over another country forcing us to open our market. Nagpipiggyback ride lang yung ethical discussion of the GMOs doon sa pag-open ng market natin. Okay? Pero ayun ang unang discussion, the ethicality of the GMOs. Hindi primary discussion yung ethicality nung pag-push sa atin nang i-open mo yung market mo for the GMOs. Okay? Kasi dudugtong yun eh. Pag nabukas na yung market mo, karugtong ng produkto, karugtong ng commodity, karugtong ng capital, yung ethics. Karugtong yung language, karugtong yung superstructure. Next po. Or in the case of nuclear technology, before nila, 'di ba? Bago lumakas yung friendship ng US at Philippines in the past years because of Marcos. Lumakas every year it's the biggest balikatan. Pag-flex yun eh. Pag-flex yun ng big brother natin. Big brother ba o big bully? Okay? The ethics of the bully na tinutulak sa atin. And once na open na yung bansa natin for those balikatan exercises, nandun na, pumasok na si nuclear reactor. Okay? Maganda yung meron ditong isa eh. Hindi ko ata nasabi. Nasama dito. On ah gagamitin siya para sa pag-aaral doon sa small nuclear reactors na ipapasok dito. Magiging test area pa tayo. Paano pag sumabog? Ako I will argue, no, hindi porket we have the science and the technology, we need to do it. One good example is Iceland. Mayaman si Iceland, pero may nuclear reactor siya? Wala. Saan niya kinukuha yung energy niya? Sa geothermal at hydro. Indigenous. Bakit hindi yun yung tinitignan natin? Bakit hindi yun yung hinahanap natin? Kasi may nagtutulak sa atin that it is acceptable to use the nuclear technology. Maybe, and it's a big maybe, ethically walang problema sa this nuclear energy, no? Pero marami kang risk eh. After they approve this at let's say may nangyari, hopefully walang mangyari. May nakita na ba tayong people in power na inangkin nila, no? Sinabi nila kami ang may kasalanan or after the fact wala pa rin, 'di ba? So, yun yung isang problema dito. We are being forced in that ethical valuation transaction na ang paling ay ang bias ay doon sa may kapangyarihan. Mapapatanggap ka na lang na okay siya. Next po. Last two slides. So then therefore, a class-based analysis of ethical valuations and transactions liberates us from the subjectivity of our current ethical philosophies, guidelines, principles, and frameworks. For me, the way I see, sige, okay, may pagsisimulan tayo sa bioethical principles, etc., etc. But in other ways, in a more critical, in a more nuanced, in a more contextualized analysis of this ethical framework, pwede mong makita that you are being forced to accept these ethical guidelines. Okay? Bakit? Ba't ganun yung pagtingin ko? Kasi what is ethical to them might not be ethical for us. Pero yung Western ethics, ito yung pinapatanggap sa atin. Bakit? Kasi yung education natin is dominated by Western education, then is dominated by Western ethics. Next po. Pero hindi ko sinasabi, no, na completely bad yung Western kasi class nga yung analysis. More importantly, a class-based analysis of ethical valuations and transactions is liberating as it directly confronts the violent ethics of the ruling class. Directly ko question mo, what's the definition of justice? Directly ko question mo, bakit nagre-research ang mga taga-social sciences kasama mga indigenous peoples group? Bakit kayo magko-conduct ng DNA research? Yang ina-argue nga ng indigenous peoples community ay dito na kami, itong ancestral domain namin, dito kami nakatira, dito kami nanggaling. Bakit yun yung isa? Kasi there was a case wherein they took blood samples from indigenous peoples group para sa diabetes research, pero nag-DNA testing sila at ginamit nila yon to identify yung migration nung group na yon. Ngayon, meron kang argument, hindi ka doon nagmula. Hindi ka from this area. Nag-migrate kayo from this area to this through DNA. Through the movement. So, yeah. Yes po. Yeah. Yes, no? So yun, no? That's a really good example para kanino, no? Ano ang definition natin nitong mga ethical language na to? And lastly, sinabi ni Fanon, When the colonized are forced to speak the language of the colonizer, let's say in the context of ethics, of what ethical is, of what is moral, they are then also forced to accept their reality. Evil and sin are identified with the colonized and purity and righteousness with the colonizer. Okay? Kung ano ang 'di ba? One good example nito sa laging lumalabas 'to, no? The West educated, the West or the colonizers civilized the colonized. To be civilized is good, is ethical. To be not civilized is not ethical, is sin, is evil. But they have a different understanding. They have a different perspective of a different viewpoint on how they exploit, on how they use resources. Same with those in uh, same with those that in terms of the colonized, of the marginalized, of the oppressed. Siguro yun lang yung ma-offer ko for this discussion. How are we are understanding current ethical language? Or is it high time for us to write our own? Maybe not to completely change the word justice, but to really define justice on how we define justice na hindi siya very subjective, na magbigay lang ako ng operational definition niya, mag-iiba na siya. O definition of beneficence, the definition of benefit, etc. Yun lang po. Salamat. Okay.
That insightful presentation. Hello? Jay, ito ba yung... Okay, gumagana na. Thank you so much, Jay. Again, the open forum is now, well, open. Any questions from in-person attendees or virtual attendees? Maybe to start, sir, actually, may tanong ako. Ito ay not as directly related to research ethics. Dun siya sa pinaka-intro part ng discussion mo. Ano po yung naging definition ng mga LUMAD students nyo ng charity?
Yung siguro maganda siyang tignan doon sa isang group, no, doon sa isang group ng student. Negative yung pagtingin nila sa charity ng isang group na student, no? Why? Kasi nakapagbasa sila ng volunteerism, nakapagbasa sila ng mga unequal relationship with regard to charity and aid giving. Maganda yung ano yung a number of responses from the LUMAD because nakakatanggap sila ng support, and this support is through a struggle with the LUMAD. Hindi siya yung basta-basta na, okay, there's a charity group giving them resources, but they see them as allies. They see them as not something nun na parang sobrang separate from them, but is also who are working with them, struggling with them, materially in terms of hindi lang yung understanding the lumad condition sa abstract. No? Kaya for them, helping, giving aid, charity, hindi ganun kasama yung pagtingin nila. Pero may nuancing din nung tinanong mo na how about this and that issue of charity, of issue of international NGO na nagkakaroon ng mas malaki yung kita nung mga charity aid ganito. Nagkakaroon sila nuance response na, okay, mali yun. No? So hindi siya hindi siya intuitive response mali agad. No? So I think that's the value nung pagtingin na may context hindi siya immediately magre-respond ka mali o tama.
Thank you, sir. Meron po bang tanong ang ating in-person audience? Ayan yan. Uy, may mga may naging nahihiya. Si Doc, syempre. Ayan na po yun.
I think sorry, I arrived a bit late, but one of the things that strikes me in the talk is really the imposition of ideas rather than from the different examples that you provided. Parang ito yung sinabi namin sa'yo. Ito yung definition namin ng ganyan. But what I was looking for is a conversation. Halimbawa, pasensya na, ika-qualify ko yung field work on the eyepiece na binigyan na example na kumuha ng dugo, ginawa ibang research, was not done in the Philippines. That was in another country. Yan. Kasi that's very similar to what pero ang hinahanap ko doon was a conversation. Alam mo yung and ito kina-qualify natin even with the informed consent. Gusto po naming tumulong. Yung tanong, ano po yung kailangan ninyo? Which means it qualifies what resource will be provided given the specific local need of the community according to the community. So, yun yung hinahanap ko. I'm trying to understand. This is one of the first engagements I've had of this social scientist. With this type of conversation, paano natin tinitake into context? Alam ko meron yung mga extreme spectrum. People think this way, people think this way. But ano yung conversation to be able to accommodate the needs of both parties, the researchers and the participants?
Tingin ko magsisimula siya dapat talaga sa pagbasag doon sa power relation eh. So how can you have a really good conversation, or can you really call it a conversation if the talk will be coming from a position of power? So once na ma-break mo yung position of power na yon, and then minsan kasi lalo na yung mga parachute science na nangyayari, pupunta lang doon, magko-conduct ng research, and then alis na. Ano yung conversation na nakuha, or they did a conversation pero walang continuation. Paano ba natin hanggang ngayon kahit yung pagtingin na recipient lang sila, no, not part of the knowledge production. Ilan na ba sa TN ang naglalagay ng co-authorship, for example doon sa communities? Kung hindi pa natin na consider pa nga yung paglalagay sa kanila as individuals, as communities, consider na ba natin yun sa discussion, no? Pero tingin ko magsisimula pa rin talaga siya doon sa material context hindi ka dapat kunyari ang research mo ay on bakit yung mga badyaw ay nakaka-deep dive, etc. Hindi yung conversation is not, hindi magsisimula doon sa diving agad Magsisimula siya ano pa, no? Ano ba yung history ng badyaw? Ano ba yung history ng struggle nyo? Ano ba yung history of disenfranchisement? Ano ba yung history ng ganito? How are you going to be part of our struggle? Will the science behind what you're doing will actually help us in pushing for equality, in pushing for justice, no? So the ethics that you say that this research is ethical, XYZ reason, pero bakit siya ethical? Ethical ba siya because na-tick natin yung boxes? O ethical siya dahil nakipamuhay tayo doon sa community? I don't know if that answers the question, pero I think that's for me doon nagsisimula yung doon nagsisimula yung conversation. Mapuputol possible yung conversation, pero maganda magtutuloy at magtutuloy siya. After a few years, no? Ano na ba nangyari? Or while we're doing this, we are also cognizant, katulad ng sinabi kanina, cognizant, no? We should be reflexive. We should reflect, no? Hindi porket na-check ko na yung tick box, hindi porket okay, informed consent process, nagsabi sila I'm taking my data, natatapos na yung discussion. Tingin ko the other the other part of the conversation is to make the discussion on ethics richer through that experience together with the community.
Okay, any further questions? Maybe from our other in-person attendees? Siguro one point of discussion lang from me. Sorry, marami akong feelings bigla sa discussion. Sir, bale, kwento ko lang. Mga 2021, I wrote a paper on vaccine hesitation. Reflection paper lang naman po siya. Tapos, ang angle na kinuha ko is national trauma. Kumbaga, tinignan ko po kung paano mandatory vaccination was introduced to us by the Spanish colonizers. Tapos, nung sumunod naman, yung mga Americans dumating dito, nag-conduct sila ng mga experiments sa Bilibid. So, hindi rin natin masisisi yung mga taong nasa laylayan kasi baka mas sila yung nag-suffer nun and maybe they continue to feel or hear the echoes of that. Dahil nga national trauma din siya. So, and then related din nga siya sa research and how things, well, of course, during those eras were not quite ethical. Ayan. Anyone, baka may gustong sumagot doon sa sinabi ko? May gusto kayong i-fact check? Questions? Sorry, last na po talaga, sir, promise. Ngayon lang ako naging madaldal sa mess. Yung isa pa rin pong angle is, nung panahon kasi po nung pandemic dito, may mga nagsasabi na wag daw tayong NIMBY or not in my backyard. The not in my backyard attitude, sorry, is when new science or technology is introduced to you or your backyard, you freak out irrationally na hindi siya informed. Which in the context of the cry or the call of those individuals, tama naman siya. Pero interesting na meron kasi pong eco-feminist movement na not in my backyard talaga. Kung saan may mga research po kasi kinakonduct sa mga communities nila na mas marginalized. At naapektuhan po sila as women kasi specifically for female organs yung damage na nakukos. Pati yung mga anak nila nagkakasakit. So, meron po talagang mga medyo powerful din po kasi yung nag-post nung Not in My Backyard. Which is, hindi naman mali, pero nagkulang ng context. And yun nga, parang nabura yung, or hindi nabigyang attention yung voices ng eco-feminist movement na yun. Anyway, we have questions apparently from our Zoom participants. First question, what do you think Philippine official ethics review system, care of FREB, is colonial, carries Euro-American positivist individualistic capitalist norms?
Totoo naman. Ah, pero babalikan ko, no? Not because it's Western mali. Kaya nga class yung analysis. No? I attended a decolonization forum here in UP last mid-year. Ang nagiging sentro ng discussion is Eurocentrism eh. But hiwalay natin yung Eurocentrism dun sa usapin ng, kaya pag hiniwalay mo siya sa usapin ng uri, mas nakikita mo na ang mali is yung imposition. Pero kung ang gumawa niyan ay yung mga working class, ibig sabihin yung working class did this altruistically. Why? Kasi the working class want to save their their folks, their people, not to exploit them, not to profit from them, no? Kaya yun yung ethics yun yung ina-argue kanina eh. Iba yung ethics ng ng exploited, ng working class. So in this context, completely mali ba siya? Kailangan natin ng nuancing. Kailangan na natin analysis. Photosynthesis, sino nag-aral? Mali ba si photosynthesis? Immediately, completely. Si positivist understanding of the world or evaluation of the world, may tama, may mali. We have to lift yung mga tama niyan and then we have to remove yung mga mali. No? For me, that's my position. Not just because nanggaling sa West, mali agad. Ang sinasabi natin, if it is colonizing na wherein hindi ka makakapag-participate of improving it, of enriching it, no, yun yung problem. So for example, if if the institutions responsible for the conduct of human research sa atin ay open for discussion on what do we mean by justice. Oh, nanggaling sa West kunyari si justice. Pero it's open for us, ino-open nila sa definition. Ano ba ang definition ng justice sa Pilipinas? Or dahil nagsama-sama tayo, mukhang hindi justice yung mas relevant doon sa lipunan natin. Ito yung mas relevant. Then therefore, ito yung gamitin natin. Maganda balikan yung tanong ni Doc Ongria eh. Start the conversation. Let's have the conversation. Mali, ako for me, parang kulang yung discussion kapag mali agad. No? So, start natin. Saan ba nagkamali? Yun ba yung tinatanong niya? So, ayun. Ano yung sa system doon sa review ng ethics, bakit kunyari usapin ng kunyari na rin yung pag-group, ano yung mababa yung risk, ano yung mataas ang risk, sino ba yung nagde-determine sino yung mababa yung risk, 'di ba? Mababa yung risk yan kasi ganito lang. Yung pala hindi mo nakita na meron ng previous katulad ng sinasabi mo kanina, no? Previously na na sila, na marginalized na sila. Previously na exploit na yung group na to. Siyempre mas kilala natin yung mga Tuskegee syphilis experiment, mas kilala yung AIDS problem in the 1980s. Pero kung aaralin natin, magkakaroon tayo ng idea, okay, nagkakaroon pala ng problem yung ethical valuations natin, ethical transactions, hindi lang siya doon sa ethics itself, but also doon sa group na nagawa ng exploitation, in this case, or nagawa ng discrimination. So for me, mas nuance yung sagot natin. Hindi porket nanggaling sa ibang bansa, mali agad. Let's review it. Let's have the talk, no? Let's start the conversation. And then ipasok natin, yung nga yung medyo nakukulangan ako dun sa guidelines eh. Parang pag binasa ko siya, alam ko na siya, na naka-apak siya sa realidad ng Pilipinas. Sa realidad ng mayamang lipunan ng Pilipinas. No? Kasi sobrang natin rich eh. Dami nating indigenous peoples group. So, ang daming pang identities, no? Et cetera, et cetera. So, tingin ko, let's have the conversation. No? Huwag agad mali. No?
Thank you again, Sir Chucky. Let's move on to the next question.
Essay.
Okay, isang malalim na hininga. Ang galing ng lecture. I think Dr. Calzado will be able to discuss my question excellently. On the assumption na walang neutral na institution sa isang class society like ours, is it correct to say that individual informed consent taking is actually to protect the funder, researcher, and ethics reviewers from legal action and not to protect the research participants? In the first place, they do know their rights in research, but the informed consent process asks them if they have questions. Paano sila magtatanong ng dapat itanong, hindi nga nila alam mga rights nila sa research? The objective fact is that research has become a tool of the capitalist ruling class. It has not changed class exploitation at all. It can be said, therefore, that research ethics' objective function is to camouflage the exploitative function of research. Your comments, please.
Parang kilala ko yung nagtanong na ito. Okay. Thesis ko ng master's, kamukha nito eh. So, it's the arguing doon sa parang administrative, clerical na itsura ng informed consent wherein you just tick boxes. So, I argue that currently in how informed consent process is written, is framed, it's actually in a way to justify the research. No? Paano natin magagawang mas ethical yon? Babalik dun sa tanong ni Doc Ongria. Have you started the conversation? Hindi kasi kapag nakipag-converse ako sa kanila, unethical na agad yon kasi ini-influence ko na yung research. I think kailangan natin basagin yung ganong pagtingin, no? Hindi mali na alamin mo kung sino yung community, kaya nga 'di ba tinanggal na yung term na subject, ginawa siyang participant. Kasi the research, no? Hindi sila subject lang to the research. They are part of the research. No, they are contributing their body, their community to the research. So I agree in this argument. Pero ano ba tanong niya? O mag-agree lang ako. Oo. Mag-a-agree ako kasi lalo na kung legalist lang siya, no? Legalist function na okay, parang pag pumunta tayo sa hospital, no? Pag pumunta tayo sa hospital, papapirmahan ka, hindi naman explain sa'yo. For example, mag-share lang ako ng ano, medyo personal na experience sa hospital. So, merong operahan, etc. So, I will be the one who will be signing. So, ang nakalagay doon sa informed consent na hindi informed consent is that once I signed the consent form, I'm agreeing that yung gagawin at mga parts ata or produkto or whatever nung operasyon will be used academically. Sabi ko dun, hindi naman ako nagalit doon sa nagpapapirma sa akin, pero sabi ko, mali po ito. Kasi what if I'm not consenting? Then therefore hindi niyo po ooperahan yung ano ko, yung kasama ko. Yes po.
Ako actually, kailangan, and ito malaking challenge din para sa ating lahat us as researchers kasi pasensya na kasi nung nagtanong niyan medyo tinamaan na researchers kami. Exploitative function parang feeling ko medyo hindi namin iniisip exploitation. When we do research, we really want to discover knowledge, and knowledge it's a research that should help. So it's purpose driven. It's not to exploit. It's to drive to discover knowledge that could assist, that could help. Anyway, yung sinabi mo, kaya kailangan natin maintindihan kung ano yung ating autonomy. Yung sinasabi mo niyan, kaya very popular ako sa mga ospital eh. Pagka pupunta ka doon, alam to ng asawa ko, ay, pwedeng mag-videotaping, pwedeng magkuha, lahat nito pwede. Pwede yung isulatan yan eh. Kasi informed consent, pirma mo yun eh. So nilalagyan ko, provided that you inform me first before. Provided that my mother allows when you ask her. Yan, pinupuno ko yung buong papel. Hindi lang yan checkbox. Nilalagyan ko ng lahat ng proviso. Nilalagyan ko pa ng phone number. Para alam nila na pag may nangyari dito, yung informed consent ko qualified. Para hindi nyo magamit. Okay, I understand. Ma'am, knowledge naman to para maturuan yung mga estudyante, yung mga bagong surgeons, etc. Oo. Pero itanong ninyo kung papayag ang nanay ko na i-videotape nyo siya, na binubuksan siya. Kung tinanong nyo, pumayag siya, di okay. Pero pag hindi nyo tinanong, hindi siya pumayag. So this is not a broad consent to anything that you will do. So yun ang nakikita ko mga bata pa kayo. If you understand what your rights are, na yun din ang sinasabi natin, kaya sabi ko, conversation eh. When we do our field work, katulad we do a lot of field work with indigenous communities, tinatanong namin sila at ini-explain natin kung ano yung risks. Bago sila pumayag, dapat there's an element of trust. So yung mga ganyan, we don't have that time here. Pero tama ka, sir, that extremes yan eh. In fact, my mother was a liver cancer patient. So sumali kami sa isang medical study. Binigyan ka ng ganyang kakapal. Sino magbabasa niyan at hindi babasahin ng nanay ko yan? Pero ako, binasa ko. Kaya alam ko kung ano yung rights namin nung every time na pupunta ang mami ko for the study. Pero yun is because I am able to. Paano naman yung mga tao na hindi, ang liliit ng letra, font 10.
English pa.
English pa. Na hindi mo maintindihan. So yun yung reaction ko sa mga medical doctors whenever they ask me. I was asked to give a lecture sa Department of Pathology, National Conference. That was my first reaction. You should talk to your patients. You should get somebody to explain to your patients bago nyo sila isama. And I hope these types of conversation will reach. Kasi we need to contextualize what comes from the West to make it adapt to what is local and what we need as we see.
Pero dagdagan ko lang din yung sinabi ni Doc Ongre. Lalo na kung researcher ka, no? Pag ganito, hala, kaya ko pa bang mag-research kung may ganito ng mabigat na pasanin sa akin? Tingin ko yung value ng pagiging reflexive, yung value of reflecting on it, yung value of being conscious that not because you think that it is good for science, it is good for a community, no? So, kaya kailangan yung ganong laging nasa isip natin, laging nasa when we do our science, when we do our field work, kasi hindi, ang galing kasi niyan eh, kapag sinulat mo sa papel, no, yung papel maganda eh, pero that paper, it's a limiting ano siya, no? Limit situation siya eh. Pero when you go out and implement that paper sa isang field, baka mawala na yung paper. Pero ang importante is being reflective, no? Tama, no? Dalawahan, the informed consent process, the informed consent form, pwede nga talaga natin tignan siya as something to protect the researcher. Pero sana hindi lang yun ganun. No? But it's really to be part of the community, to be with the community, to inform them na kapag nagkaroon ng problema, may pinarmahan ka, bawal mo akong kasuhan. No? Hindi sana siya nagwo-work ng ganon. Nagwo-work siya dahil genuine yung informed consent na, okay, pag binasa mo, okay, naiintindihan mo na kapag binigyan kita ng ganito, hindi ka gagaling. Kapag, di ba, for example, sa Pilipinas, I don't know kung ginagamit yung term na therapeutic misconception eh. If you're si therapeutic sa medical field, no, magkadugtong si TM at si informed consent. If you have TM, you cannot have informed consent. Kasi ibig sabihin, merong misconception on what will be applied to you. Katulad nung kunyari, yung sa cancer. Kung akala nung pasyente ay gagaling siya, misconception na yon, lalo na kung ano lang siya, no? Test drug. Okay? Basag na yung informed consent natin. Pero ayun, it should not prevent us from doing research. Pero ayun, sana wag natin ginagamit siya as a tool para makakagawa lang ng research for research sake.
Thank you, Dr. Calzado and Dr. De Ungria. Another essay from our Zoom attendees.
Essay talaga yung mga question.
Hello, sir. Sana nakapag-lunch na po kayo. Tungkol po ito sa sinabi ninyo about language. Napansin ko po kasi may language po ang mga student activists or tibak, imperialismo, pabagsakin, tutol sa neoliberalismo, etc. That's the way they speak po. Malalim na Tagalog na mga terms. Kasi daw po, gusto daw po nilang makilebel sa mga komunidad. Ilapit ang sarili nila sa mga komunidad para talagang makasama sa kanilang laban. Para para makahikayat ng mga sasama, etc. Pero na-notice ko rin po kasi na hindi naman po ganun magsalita majority ng mga tao. Hindi ganun ang language ng mga students, ng mga farmers, ng mga fishing communities na napuntahan ko. So ang question ko po, paano talagang mabibridge yung ganitong dilemma? Kasi parang hindi po le-lamanize enough yung terms, kaya hindi naiintindihan enough. Ano pong steps ang masasuggest nyo for this?
Parang hindi na tungkol dun sa ano, no? Pero tingin ko ang sagot na nandun eh, know your community. 'Di ba? Sino yung community? Kunyari yung UP, ano pa rin ba tayo? Taglish na ba? Mas nag-i-English na ba? 'Di ba? Gawin nating, ako wala nga, baka mali yung position ko, pero kung kunyari ano mo, sobrang Tagalog or Filipino, okay? Pero yung kausap mo ay hindi gano'n nakakaintindi ng Filipino. Pero yung attempt mo is so that mas nakadikit siya doon sa experience na lipunan mo. Pero yung lipunan na yun or yung community na yun, ang material sa kanya, dun sa language niya, is that language of Taglish, for example. So bakit hindi ka magta-Taglish? 'Di ba? Dun sa community, ganito ang mga terminologies nila, et cetera, et cetera. So, tama na dapat maging ano ka, no? You reflect, okay, nagdadala ba ako ng language na discriminating, nagdadala ba ako ng language na hindi nila maintindihan, kaya doon nagsisimula yung conversation. Nung pumunta ka ba doon, nagpunta ka doon bilang parang ano, no? Proselytizing agent na, okay, makinig kayo, ganito ang problema nyo. Ang problema nyo ay binabaha kayo. Eh yung pala hindi yun yung problema nila. Ang problema pala nila ay maraming basura na hindi sila ang gumawa at tinulak sa kanila ang single-use plastics through sachet economy, etc. etc. Kaya nagbabaha. Yung pala, ang problema nila ay poverty. Can you speak the language of poverty? Diba? Language is not just the language of English, Tagalog, Cebuano, but the language of the community. It's the language of poverty, the language of discrimination, the material language of that community. So hindi siya usap dapat talagang makibagay doon sa community na yon. For example, siguro dagdag na lang. Ang daming sinasabi, no? Nung nandito yung mga nung pumunta kami sa Lumad School before, pinakilala kami as a mga scientist. Natawa naman kami, scientist kami. No? Mga simpleng teacher lang kami. So natuwa, edi mga estudyante grade 5 ata ah, tanong sila, "Sir, paano paano ba nagkakaroon ng umaga-gabi?" I-explain ka. Ano ba yung shape ng Earth? And so iniisip ko lang round. Aba, may nagtaas ng kamay, oblate spheroid. Know the language of the community. Kasi minsan meron na tayong idea na ganito sila magsalita, ganito lang yung kaya nilang maintindihan. Minsan, kung mahirap yung terminology, it is our duty also na i-dissect, no? Paliitin yung bigat ng salita na yon at alamin kung paano nila maintindihan. Of course, hindi lang sa atin nanggagaling yung knowledge. Nanggagaling din sa community. As we speak to them, we also learn from them. No? Tapos pagsasamahin natin yon until magkaintindihan na tayo in a common language, through conversation.
Thank you so much, sir. I think mahalaga po talaga yung needing to converse with the community first and contextualizing things. Since meron din pong angle na meron po kasi tayong mga groups na ina-assume natin na groups or classes na ina-assume natin na hindi nila kaya yung ganitong level or what have you. Pero may experience po kasi ako once sa Lumad sa kampuhan. Tapos nag-uusap po kami, then nabanggit ko po yung neoliberalism. Tapos parang I think some people find that yun nga po na parang why are you bringing these big words here? Which I'm losing my mind internally kasi mas alam niya talaga yun kesa sa akin. Like that's his life. So it really depends. Context-based sila na parang sana wag din natin i-assume din na hindi alam nung certain groups.
Or they understand it through another word. Or they understand it through experience. And then, it's our, makakatulong tayo sa pag-verbalize nung experience na yon into another form or in a form that they will understand.
Next question from Zoom. Could we get your thoughts on how research ethics sometimes protects the elite and their activities from being studied, and how abiding by data privacy can actually feel like going against moral principles and our sense of justice, knowing that the actions of the elite, private or public, affect and influence the lives of the majority?
Ayun na, nakakalungkot kung yung data privacy ay nawe-weaponize for these kinds of reality. Pero kunyari, ang experience namin sa school, may ganun misinterpreting the 2012 Data Privacy Act. When in fact, it should be protecting the people, not protecting yung may ginagawang kalokohan. No? For example, kung same with the GDPR sa Europe, dapat ang tanong dyan, dapat hindi. No? Pero syempre, iba yung dapat sa nangyayari. Kung may ganong experience, it should not be used to protect. It should not be used as a shield. Kasi kunyari, ang dami mo ng ang dami ng in bioethical issues na tag dito. From the Nazi experiments to other experiments. Kung wala kang paglabas ng data, ay matatago at matatago yun. Hindi mo malalaman meron na palang tag dito, masamang ginagawa. So I think I agree. Dapat pero again, babalik tayo. Sino nagsusulat ng batas? Sino nag-i-implement ng batas? Para kanino yung batas? Siyempre, iba yung nakasulat sa implementation. Pero ang tinutulak natin, kailangan ng pushback. Kung gano'n ang nangyayari, kung gano'n ang nangyayari sa implementation, pushback. No? Ganito dapat yan. Ganito siya in-envision. So dapat i-implement natin the way it should be, it was envisioned, morally, ethically.
Sir, share ko lang din po. Meron po kasi ako isang prof na medyo may radical na take sa research ethics actually. Although feeling ko hindi naman yun fully serious. Sabi niya ayaw daw niya ng ethics. Kasi because of ethics, you can't study the elite. So you cannot study the elite, for example, sa sociology. Hindi mo unveil kung ano yung ginagawa nila. They can simply say, I don't consent. Tapos wala ka ng right to find out yung details ng mga activities na nakaka-affect sa buhay mo. At saka feeling ko may mga things talaga na deserve ma-expose. So I was wondering,
May
what do you
nabasa
think
ko pero
of
di pa
that,
ako pumipirma.
ano naman po, stance? Na
Okay.
Ako, kasi parang
Ganun, may
papasok siya
pagganon
dun sa
pa.
argument ko eh. Kaya papasok siya dun sa argument ko na whose ethics? Kung I do think yung mga sa ethics committee natin, altruistic naman yung creation ng ethics committee natin, yung mga ethical principles na ginagamit ng to use the ethical principles to hide behind them, parang problematic siya na dapat hindi nakakatago doon sa ethical principles. Pero possible nga mangyari kung ganun nga ang pagtingin natin is the ethics of the powerful and the ethics of the ano. Pero given that kung independent yung yung committee, dapat no hindi siya magagamit as a tool, as a weapon to pero ang isa pang tanong, uh, aren't there any other way to understand what the ruling elite are doing? Is it only through informed consent, or are there other ways to analyze?
Just a comment. Let's just define first what the action is. When you talk about research ethics committees, we are only reviewing protocols for research that will be conducted. If there are certain elites or people, regardless of class, doing something wrong, investigation na yan. Police na yan, hindi na research ethics committee. If
Tama.
it's bad behavior, it's not data privacy. It's proper sorry, forensic genetics. Paimbestigan nyo na sa police, sampahan nyo na ng kaso. Because those behaviors are not for research. Those are to correct something that may be criminal or civil liability. So we need to understand what the question is and then which groups are going to help us right what is wrong.
Ma'am, sige, I'll respond. So, in our case, sorry po yung sociology of the elites po kasi hindi lang criminal activity ng elites.
Or civil, whatever.
Hindi rin po civil, like everyday life, yung mga choices nila na maybe not super directly, nakaka-affect sa hierarchy ng lipunan. For example, yung movie or film, a documentary na, I guess mixed reviews, yung Kingmaker, where we got a deep look into Imelda Marcos. Na makikita mo kung sino siya at sino yung associates niya at yung buhay niya na might indirectly reproduce yun, social inequalities, but only because she consented in that particular moment. So for sociology po kasi, gusto namin investigate yung elites, not just because they're doing something heinous, which is possible, and it's absolutely true na in those cases, you should just report them to the proper authorities and wala nang kinalaman yung RECs dyan. Pero kami po as sociologists, nagsastruggle kami mag-sociology of elites. Kasi nga po, madali kaming ma-shut away, tapos kulang pa kami ng data, secondary data, kulang ng alternatives as just mere researchers, and maybe not as reporters of crime. So, ayun lang.
Okay, different perspective, broad discussion, maybe another lecture.
Ay, iba na pala. Same pala. Just kidding. Next question. One last. Oh, okay, good. Dahil napadaldal siguro ako kaya ay enough na daw. Again, we would like to thank o palakpakan naman ulit sa ating very insightful na speaker. Thank you, Dr. Chucky Casado, for your invaluable insights on class-based analysis and research ethics. We would also like to thank our attendees for having a discursive lunch with us. But to further express our gratitude to our speaker, we'd like to call on UPD Reb Chair Dr. Maria Corazon de Ungria for uh, the awarding of the Certificate of Appreciation. Again, palakpakan natin ang ating mga sarili dahil nakapagdaldalan tayo ng mabuti in a very discursive way this noon. Thank you to our online attendees, to our in-person audience, and we look forward to seeing you again. For your QR codes for the evaluation form, online attendees, it's now being flashed on the screen and it's linked in the Zoom chat box. And for our on-site attendees, your QR code for the evaluation form is by the registration area with Miss Flora Tagiling. Check out the next episode of MESS on May 15, The Role of AI in Research Ethics, AI-Assisted Review with Dr. Iris PL Isiptan. Again, the next episode of MESS will be held on May 15. Goodbye and see you. Follow UPD Reb on social media at UPD Reb on Facebook, X, and LinkedIn, and at reb.upd on YouTube channel at UPD Liman Reb